now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for August 25th. Well, here we are with another day in the tropics, and it's a lot quieter than what we've been seeing the last few weeks, with the only feature today being the remnants of Marty, which have, of course, degenerated into a post-tropical cyclone earlier today. It was a relatively short-lived tropical storm at that, and afterwards it is not looking like we're going to be seeing a tropical storm for the short term, probably for only hours to a day. In the Atlantic, it's day 86 of Atlantic hurricane season, and we have Invest 97 through 99L. 97 and 99L have the highest chances of formation, 70%, while 98L has a 40% chance of formation at this time. It's day 102 of Eastern Pacific hurricane season. Linda is finally off the map, and of course, Marty has become a post-tropical cyclone. Invest 95E, however, is likely to develop into the system's 14th tropical storm by tomorrow night. And looking at the Western Pacific, it is very rare that I say this nowadays, but there are no storms active and no storms expected in the next 5 days here. Quite a contrary to what we saw with the beginning of the month when we looked at all the invests that we were active, and then of course the long and enduring track of OMEs. Same story in the North Indian Ocean. There is nothing active here and nothing expected in the next 5 days. And that, in this situation, is more typical, as of course we are still in August, and it is much rarer that you see tropical cyclones forming in this specific month. Much of the season's peak will come back in around October, maybe sooner. And the Atlantic, here's the Atlantic satellite there. You can see the three invests in a way. 98L towards the bottom of your screen, 97L that is moving towards the north, and 99L, which is starting to get itself a little bit more established there south of Hispaniola. Moving on over to the Eastern Pacific, Linda is pretty much gone at this point, and then of course you now have the remnants of Marty, which lost all of its convection, and you can kind of see the western fringes of 95E as it continues to move towards the westward. Could pose a threat to Baja later on. And then of course in the Western Pacific, it is relatively devoid of the usual cloud activity that you see filling up the map there, of course, especially as you head in the northern Philippine Sea and areas south of Japan. So interesting what we're going on here. Not exactly anything that would favor development here in the coming days for sure. Moving on over to the North Indian Ocean satellite, not much going on here besides the usual monsoonal activity that is to be expected for this time of year, while the Bay of Bengal sees that moisture. The Arabian Sea is basically seeing the opposite, and that is to be expected for this time of year. No development expected anytime here soon. Moving the floater on to 99L, because that of course is the highest chance system that we've got that poses a threat to land right now, besides of course 95A, but this one is already looking significant in its own way, given the fact it could impact the Yucatan and potentially the US. That is something that we could be monitoring in the days to come. Here are the sea surface temperatures ahead of the systems we're dealing with in the Eastern Pacific. We're looking at 29 to 30 degrees Celsius temperatures for where 95E is currently. Most of the basin in general is around 28 to 29 there. Some areas in 27 though. The Atlantic, we're looking at 27 to 28s dominating the region. Of course, much of the areas that are seeing development are in 27 to 28, although 99L is going to be entering some 29s in isolated spots. You can kind of see the trail left behind by Grace there. And then of course in the North Indian Ocean, we're still looking at those sea surface temperatures being around 27 to 28 degrees Celsius there. Some areas around 29. And then of course as you get towards the Arabian Sea, those temperatures drastically drop off. And in the Western Pacific, we're seeing more areas start to fill in with 30 degrees Celsius temperatures, although much of it is confined to the Philippine Sea, near the equator, and in the South China Sea, especially west of the Hainan Peninsula. Southern Hemisphere just looking relatively cool in general. Of course, it is still well into winter here. And looking at the sea surface temperature anomalies, of course the subtropics and the high latitudes in general are still looking relatively warm. The Sea of Japan is still slowly cooling from its very anomalous temperatures, and the Atlantic in general is relatively warm. We can see the cold trail left behind from Grace's rapid intensification. Other than that, not really too many things out of the norm here. On this day in 2003, we had Hurricane Ignacio, which was about to make a Category 2 landfall on the Baja California coast there. and Krovon, which was making a Category 1 landfall in the Hainan Peninsula of China. So 2 storms making landfall on this day, neither of which will get retired in the end though. Interesting to see how far behind that the 2003 season was, considering the fact, of course, this is a list 1 year, and we are already up to the M name so far of names we've already used. So definitely interesting in terms of the grand scheme of where we are and what is compared to previous years with this list of names. Well, here are the next names. In the Atlantic, it's Ida followed by Julian. In the Eastern Pacific, we're looking at for Nora and Olaf. And in the Central Pacific, while you need vitamin C to help you see, we're not going to be seeing Hone in the seas anytime soon, so you better seize the opportunity of waiting for that name. In the Western Pacific, the next name is Kansan followed by Chantu. And in the North Indian Ocean, we are still looking out for Gulab and Shaheen, 2 names you're probably not going to be seeing for some time here. Moving on over to the Southern Hemisphere. In particular, the next 2 names in the southwestern Indian Ocean are now Anna followed by Batsirai. In the Australian region, we're looking out for Patty and Ruby, and in the South Pacific, it is Cody. We'll be back for another Tropical Weather Bulletin tomorrow night.